Now we are moving to our fourth concept, that is active transport. So far we have talked about diffusion and osmosis and water potential. Okay, these processes, we have talked about these processes where the cell just sits back and lets physics do the work. But if a cell relied only on those two, it would be a slave to concentration. Think about think about the problem. A cell needs to stock up on nutrients like glucose or ions to stay alive. But if it relies on diffusion, as soon as the cell has more nutrients inside than outside, those useful molecules would simply leak out. The cell could never build up a pantry of food. Similarly, if a poison was more common outside, the cell would have no way to stop it from leaking in. The solution is a biological superpower which is called as active transport. So active transport is the cell's way of saying no to the laws of diffusion. It allows the cell to move substances against the concentration gradient, means from low concentration to high concentration. We shall not use the word here as we shall not use the word water potential. We shall use the word low concentration. Okay, from a lower concentration to a higher concentration. So imagine trying to push a heavy box up a hill. Okay, that is active transport, and it takes molecules from a region of lower concentration and forces them into a region of higher concentration. It is the reason your cells can stay charged up with energy and nutrients even when the world around them is empty. It is the final price of the puzzle that makes life possible. We have seen that active transport is a superpower, but every superpower comes with a cost. Unlike diffusion and osmosis, which are passive systems, passive functions, and happen for free, active transport is active. It requires a constant high-speed fuel supply, and that fuel is a molecule called ATP. Okay, so think of ATP as the universal currency of the cell. If the cell wants to push a molecule uphill against the gradient, it has to spend an ATP molecule to power the pump. And where does this ATP come from? It comes from the process of respiration. And this creates a direct, unbreakable link between your breathing and your cell's ability to move nutrients. We know this is true because of the evidence that if you stop a cell from respiring by taking away its oxygen or its glucose, active transport stops immediately. The pumps simply run out of gas. And because of this, you can actually predict which cells in the body are the powerhouses of movement just by looking at them. Cells that perform a massive amount of active transport, like the cells in your kidneys filtering blood or your small intestine absorbing food, these are absolutely packed with mitochondria. And in the word of biology, if you see a cell with thousands of mitochondria, you can bet it is spending a fortune in energy to move substances exactly where it wants them to be. We know the cell needs energy to move things uphill, but how does it actually grab a microscopic molecule and force it through a membrane? Scientists use the carrier protein model to explain this miniature machinery. Think of these proteins as specialized high-tech gates embedded in the cell membrane. It happens in three distinct steps. Number one is binding, which a specific molecule, let's say glucose, okay, it finds a perfectly shaped slot on a protein molecule. It fits just like a key in a lock and key model. Okay, this specificity is crucial. A glucose gate would not let a salt ion through, and vice versa. And secondly is transformation. This is where the magic happens. The cell spends a molecule of ATP energy. This energy causes the entire protein to physically change its shape or rotate. It is like a revolving door that only turns when you push it. And number three is release. As a protein flips or opens, the molecule is pushed through the other side. And crucially, this happens even if the other side is already crowded with that same molecule. Okay, so the protein does not care about the concentration. It has the mechanical power to force the molecule through. It is a one-way energy-powered system that ensures the cell gets exactly what it needs and exactly when it needs. Okay, we have seen the machinery. Now let's see it in action. Why does your body spend so much energy on these protein pumps? Because without them, your most basic biological functions would fail. In animals, look at your small intestine. After a big meal, diffusion works great at first, but eventually the concentration of glucose in your gut drops lower than the concentration in your blood, and without active transport, that remaining energy would just be wasted. Instead, the villi in your gut use active transport to hover up every last bit of glucose, ensuring nothing goes to waste. Then your kidneys do the same thing. As they filter your blood, they accidentally let some useful salts and glucose slip into the urine. Active transport acts like a reclamation crew, pumping those nutrients back into your blood before they leave the body. And even your nerves rely on this. Your nerve cells are constantly pumping sodium ions out of the cell against the gradient. This creates a kind of electrical tension that is absolutely essential for sending the signals which allow you to move and think. In plant kingdom, the story is just as vital. We have already discussed that, but just a recap here. The root hair cells live in soil where mineral salts like the nitrates needed for growth. Previously, we discussed about how water moves. Okay, here we are discussing how active transport comes into action. Okay, so root hair cells live in soil where mineral salts like the nitrates needed for growth. Those are required for growth. They are often very dilute. So diffusion cannot help here because the concentration inside the plant is already higher. Concentration of solutes, okay, concentration of solutes is already higher. So the roots use active transport system to force those minerals into the plant. Whether it is a human absorbing a meal or tree absorbing minerals from the soil, active transport is the engine which allows life to thrive in an environment which does not always give us what we need for free. This is a comparison, okay, between diffusion and active transport. This is also a question in your book, okay. So as we have reached the end of our journey through cellular movement. To make sure you are ready for your exams, let's look at this master comparison table. This is the ultimate cheat sheet for distinguishing between the two ways molecules move across a membrane. First of all, let's look at the direction. Diffusion is the downhill process. It moves from high concentration to low concentration, means high potential to low potential. While active transport is the uphill process. It moves from low to high. This leads directly to the gradient. In diffusion, molecules simply flow down the gradient. In diffusion, down the gradient until they are even. In active transport, the cell forces them against the gradient, pushing them into an area that is already crowded. And because of this, the energy, that is ATP requirement, is completely different. Diffusion is passive system. It does not require any energy, okay, but because the molecules do the work themselves, okay, that is the reason. But in active transport, as this is active, it is strictly required. What is required? ATP, energy is required, and without ATP from respiration, the pumps stop. Then what is the requirement for this to happen? For diffusion, all you need is the random molecular motion of the particles themselves, okay. It can happen in a lab beaker just as easily as a lung. But active transport requires living cell and specialized carrier proteins to act as the gates. And finally, what is the example of diffusion and active transport? Diffusion is how oxygen slips into your blood effortlessly, and active transport is how your small intestine hoovers up every last bit of glucose to keep you powered throughout the day. Master this table, okay, and you have mastered the if you have mastered this table, you have mastered the fundamental physics of how life stays organized, energized, and alive. So active transport is the only one that can go against a gradient, while osmosis is effectively just a special version of diffusion that only cares about water molecules. Here is the key takeaways for you students. Okay, to remember the difference, use the hill analogy. Okay, diffusion is like a ball rolling down a hill. It happens automatically, and active transport is like pushing a ball up a hill. It requires effort and it requires energy, and that energy is ATP. With that, we have concluded our chapter on cellular transport. We have covered the vital mechanics of how water and solutes move across membranes, essential processes which keep our every cell in our bodies alive. I'm very hopeful this series has given you a clear professional level understanding of active transport, diffusion, and osmosis. I specifically looked at the mechanics of osmosis through the lens of water potential, which is a crucial concept for your upcoming exams. If any parts of these mechanisms is still unclear to you, please drop your questions in the comment section below. I personally review them to help you clear up any confusion. If you have not joined our community yet, hit the subscribe button and turn on notifications so you do not miss our daily biology lectures. Dear students, tomorrow we shift our theory to practice. I will upload a dedicated questions and answer session where I shall discuss various MCQs and structured questions designed to mirror your final exam papers. So do not miss tomorrow video. Okay, that is very uh, important for your preparation. Stay focused, keep studying hard, and I will see you in the next session. Best wishes to you all. Thank you.